Welcome to a review of the new Local Visions and Yuka Nagase collab album, OACL. This album brings together 9 producers from Japanese electronic label Local Visions and lets them work with VTuber/virtual idol Yuka Nagase. Despite involving VTubers and young electronic producers, this album is more like an 80s throwback than anything else. It encompasses a lot of the electronic pop styles that were popular back then. It's also pretty cohesive, which is impressive considering all the different tracks by all the different producers on here. So let's start with the first one, Mellow Blush and their song Time Capsule. This is a pretty trippy intro to the album, and it doesn't really feature any actual singing. It's a chilled out track with some spoken word vocals over the top. It's full of twinkly noises and reverb, and I'm sure if I spoke Japanese, I would get a lot more value out of this than I currently do. But I don't, so oops. Regardless, this sounds pretty cool, and the effects and melodies are enough to hold my attention for 2 minutes. And it works. The second track is Kiwo Tsukate by Ko.Oyama. This one's a short but sweet electropop song with some retro idol flair. The production on this song is really on point. Some of the highlights include the shimmering chorus and the really neat bass solo towards the end. That solo honestly shouldn't work on this track, but it's pulled off really well. While the instrumental is consistently great, the vocals from Yuka Nagase are a mixed bag. On one hand, I really like the melodies, especially in the chorus. On the other hand, her vocal pitch leans more towards being annoying than anything else. It doesn't get on my nerves enough to ruin the immaculate production though, so this song is still good. Following that, we get Sleeper's Story by Oriibu ga aru, which is yet another retro throwback, although this one's more of a slick synth-funk song. It's much more laid back than Kiwo Tsukate, focusing more on an elite groove. Just like that last song, the instrumental here is fantastic. It's less hyperactive, but it makes up for that by being incredibly funky. The vocals are also much better here. They keep the great melodies from the last track, but she doesn't go for as many high notes, which I think works a lot better. This song is endlessly catchy, and it is absolutely one of the best songs here. The fourth song, Tsudio Studio's sa ku ra li ra, dabbles in yet another retro pop style, but this time it's the iconic city pop. City pop has been going through a resurgence over the last few years, and I will be sad if this isn't one of the defining songs of that wave. This is incredible stuff. For the first time on this album, I think Yuka Nagase is really given a chance to shine. She's at her best here. She fits super well on this instrumental, and her start and stop rhyming delivery is perfect for this track. She shines so bright here. And that's not to take anything away from the instrumental, because that is also probably the best on the whole record. And that's saying a lot, because the instrumentals on this album are pretty consistently good. You get the retro synth hits and the super danceable rhythms common in city pop, but there's also some modern touches thrown in with the claps and stuff. There's also a killer saxophone solo that is basically a requirement for every great city pop song. This is one of the best songs I've heard all year. Like, this is amazing. Absolutely give this one a listen. The fifth song is upusen's Mercury Lamp, and this isn't quite as good as the few that precede it. My main problem with this comes from the instrumental. It's pretty repetitive and not in a good way, and when it changes it up, it's not really any better. The vocals are also generally a lot weaker here. There's a rap section halfway through that does absolutely nothing for me, and I'm not a fan of the extensive use of a vocoder or whatever that is. This track just doesn't really work. The sixth song is from Rhino, Kawara, and it's a nice chilled out interlude. Yuka Nagase isn't really here at all, so it's just 3 minutes of vaporwave vibes. There's not too much to say about this whole thing. I like the way typing is incorporated into the song, I guess. Like, it's a totally fine vibe break. I am perfectly cool with this. And following that break is jiyuagoka's Yuka. This is another song that's a lot more laid back in pretty much every facet. This song feels similar to earlier songs like Kiwo Tsukate, but generally not as good. The chorus here is too understated. I'm not saying every song needs to have like a big epic chorus moment, but this doesn't differentiate itself from the verses at all. And the melodies, both from the singer and the guitar, don't really do anything for me either. There's just nothing here that would make this song stick in my head outside of the 3 minutes it takes to listen to it. Like, my brain hears it, goes, yep, that's a song, and then just immediately forgets. Track 8 is Sonic Module's Yume Wara Wara, and this is better. A little. The instrumental was mostly fine here, like it does its job well enough, but just like the last song, I don't think it's super memorable. The drums are also particularly not good on this track. They're repetitive, they're mixed far too loudly, and overall they just sound super flat. It's not really pleasant. It doesn't do enough to like take you out of the song, but they could be a lot better. Fortunately though, Yuka Nagase carries on this track. The chorus melody on this song is great, and it's the thing you're most likely to come back to with this song. Luckily, Luckily, most of this song is just a chorus, and if it's not a chorus, it's rushing to get back to that chorus as quickly as possible, which is fine at first, but I think it kind of wears down on you over repeated listens, at least when I was writing this review. Also, unfortunately, her singing is annoyingly high-pitched at points, just like it was on track 2. It's not as bad as it was on that song, but it's not ideal. I think Yuka Nagase sounds a lot better in like a lower register and not that super moe style, and I wish she would stay in that more often. There's moments on this song where I see the vision, but in the end, it just doesn't really come together for me. It's fine, I guess. And finally, the last song on the album is AOTQ's Horizon. This is a slower track that takes a more spacious approach to composition. It feels closer to the interlude than anything else on the album because of its almost vaporwave charms. While this song isn't an immediately catchy pop banger like the city pop ones from earlier, there's more than enough going on here to make it fun. The sound design and production on this track really stands out. It's artsy and it tries to pull in a lot of different directions, but it all works out really well. The vocals accordingly take more of a backseat to that production on this song, which is fine, but I want to hear more Yuka Nagase. It's not as immediately great as like tracks 3 or 4, but there's a lot of cool details here that make it an interesting and rewarding listen. So that's OACL. Despite the variety in producers on this record, it does feel remarkably cohesive. All 9 of these tracks play to a certain vibe and style really well, and there's nothing that ever feels out of place. And I think that's one of the best parts of this record. It doesn't feel like a compilation of a lot of different sounds. It sounds like a record that had a very coherent vision and was able to follow through with it. This album does start strong with a really fantastic first half, but it does fall off quite a bit afterwards, so I'm gonna give it a 7 to a 7.5 out of 10. Regardless, it's still a fun listen, and I think it's worth checking out if you're into this kind of retro pop aesthetic. Like, comment, sub, you know what to do. Bye!